All right, welcome back to another episode of Wellness Unplugged. My guest today, Sophia DeSantis, runs a really cool blog and podcast, and I love that it's Veggies Don't Bite, and I think I added in this title, but you can bite them. Um, so
Yeah.
it's it's super cool to have you here. Thanks for jumping on, Sophia.
Thanks for having me. I'm super happy to be here.
Yeah, so we wanted to touch on a couple different things here. Now, are you completely vegan, or when you say plant-based,
Yeah.
what does that look like for you?
So vegan and plant-based are very two different things. I create vegan recipes, which
Mhm.
the vegan part is just a more, I guess the reason I use that, a lot of people use that when it comes to food is that um, I feel like it's a more known term and what
Right.
people understand what it is. And also it's very search friendly.
Fair
So
enough. Yep. Yep.
I associate myself more plant-based. I am not vegan. Vegan is more of a lifestyle.
Okay.
Plant I mean, they're very similar in the sense that, you're avoiding animal products and things like that, but plant-based is more, I think, based on more like the food part of it, and vegan is more like a total around lifestyle. We changed our diet to I consider ourselves very plant rich, um,
Yep.
to help my husband's health. And so our reasons were health based. And so we eat mostly plant-based foods. We also eat non-plant-based foods. That has to do more most of the time, like when we go out, we're on vacation, things like that. My
Yeah.
kids, I have one son that eats, will only eat regular cheese, so that's what I get him because that's that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ice cream, things like that will come into the house. Like sometimes eggs, things like that. But in general, I'd say at home, we're probably like 95% only plant-based foods. And then when we go out, we just kind of don't really stress about it. My husband is probably the most plant-based out of all of us because he had to switch his diet for his own health. So
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
it's kind of a necessity for him.
Well, that's super interesting. I love that you've taken such a balanced approach with it, because I think one of the things that's given maybe veganism as a practice kind of a bad rap is the very almost like extremist type attitude or all or nothing attitude. That's very you're the in or you're out, and if you're out, there's something wrong with you. And you've taken a much
Yeah.
like a seemingly much more relaxed approach to it. Um, what kind of got you going down this path in the first place?
Well, so jumping back with veganism, the reason a lot of people give a very black and white is because the vegan lifestyle is very all or nothing, and which is
Fair enough.
why
Yeah.
we associate more with plant-based lifestyle. Whereas
Yeah.
when you're plant-based, it has just a little more. But in all honesty, I think you can do anything in any way you want because there's really is no police telling you what you can and can't do. It's really
Yeah.
up to you. I think
Yeah.
it's the societal online world pressure that pushes people away from a lot of the stuff because they make it seem very extremist and very all or nothing. For
Yeah.
us, we changed our diet. Like I mentioned before, was my husband was having some heart health issues, and he had been on medication his whole life, and we had two young kids. My first two kids are 15 months apart. He had started traveling for work every single week. And the stress level was kind of, pretty high,
Yeah. Yeah.
with
No kidding.
a 1-year-old, a baby, and a full-time traveling job. And
Yeah.
his medication kind of basically stopped working. And so he started seeing a new cardiologist who suggested perhaps that if he's interested, he can explore dietary changes. He helps a lot of his patients through dietary changes. And, if he's interested, that's something that they can explore. And he was interested. And so basically, we did an overhaul on our diet. And within 3 months, my husband had reversed all his issues. He was off medication. He hasn't been on medication
Wow.
since. And that was 9 years ago. Um, his blood pressure and cholesterol were like the lowest they'd ever been. Yeah, it was pretty amazing, like the
Yeah. No
benefits that
kidding.
he saw.
Yeah, that's remarkable in terms of just creating that level of change in such kind of a short window of time. If you don't mind sharing, like you say, he had some heart issues. Were they like hereditary, genetic, or?
Yeah. Well, he had been told that they were in his genetics and there's nothing he can do. So here's your medication. It is what it is.
Yeah.
It did run in his family.
Right.
But and it's not going to be true for everybody, but his cardiologist had told him that, he dealt with a lot of patients through dietary changes. I mean, he gave my husband examples of patients who had blocked arteries to an extreme, who he helped, reverse a lot of that through dietary changes. And so he did this. The important piece here is he did this under the advice of a doctor and the guidance of a
Yes.
doctor.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like he just stopped his meds and did this all on his own. His
Right.
doctor
Yeah. Of
was the
course.
one that helped him with, let's, change our diet, and then slowly got him off the medication, and it, didn't need it anymore. And so, he was working with a qualified professional. But yes, it was hereditary. He was told that most of his adult life, that here's
Yeah.
your medication. It's hereditary. It is what it is.
And that's really interesting because, and this is not to knock the medical profession, because I think we have wonderful medical professionals, very, very caring individuals. But sometimes when something falls out of their scope of expertise or practice, there's a tendency to say there's nothing we can do. And maybe that's true. They could say, but it'd almost be better to say, like, in our toolkit, there's nothing that we have that can assist you with this. However, that often gets taken as this absolutist, statement of finality, like this is the rest of your life kind of thing.
Yeah.
The other side of that is all of a sudden people become open to exploring more options, and saying, well, you know what, if you have nothing to offer, I don't want to just settle for the rest of my life as this being my lot in life. I want to make some changes and try something else. And lifestyle interventions can really create a dramatic shift. And so did you find it like difficult to kind of make, like, would he have been an omnivore? I guess you could call an omnivore prior to this, or?
Well, no, I mean, that's what's interesting is that, like, we considered ourselves very healthy eaters. I
Okay. Yeah.
made, cooked food at home a lot. The thing is that I think what we have realized is that for him and his body, when you eat an animal product, animals are living beings. Things that come from animals like milk are from a living being. And those and animals have cholesterol. They have certain hormones that it doesn't mean they've been injected with those. It's natural. Any living being has these things because it's
Mhm.
part of the body. So
Yeah.
when you're consuming these animal products, you're taking on, those things as well. And my husband's body does not metabolize that well. It affects his blood pressure, his cholesterol, and that's just the way it is. Whereas, I can eat, some animal products and not have a problem like that. We're all different. And that's not to say that I think a predominantly plant-based diet is probably helpful for absolutely everyone. Just because the more plants, the more nutrients you give yourself, the better you feel. It helps with so many things with, GI and microbiome and all, so many different benefits. But that's not to say that you can't eat some animal products and still be a healthy individual, because I think a lot of people can. Just my husband, like when he does have a little more dairy, maybe some eggs, he starts to feel that, and he can feel,
Yeah.
I need to, like, eat my salads again. I need to, flush my body with more, plant-based
Yeah. Yeah.
plant-based options, because I'm feeling this change. And that's kind of, I think that once we become really intuitive in our body and we stop listening to the outside world versus our inner world with what it is that we should eat, I think that we are able to make these decisions better.
Yeah, and I love that you said start to listen to your inside world versus the outside world. And I just want to highlight again, because I love, like, what a balanced approach you take to all of this. Like, it's a very open-minded, and we're going to try this. We're going to see, like, what the response is, and if it's a positive response, then we're going to continue down this path. And I find myself going down, I guess, the path of the ethical omnivore. More and more wanting to be a conscious consumer rather than just a mindless consumer. So thinking more thought, and maybe this is something that comes with age, or maybe, I don't know, maybe the younger generation is seeing this shift as well. We want to know a little bit more about our food, where it was raised, that kind of thing, starting to make connections with local farms and versus, say, just like mass produced food products. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I should say, I think a lot of that, I think there's just a shift in the world today about mindfulness. And I think mindfulness is kind of is starting to integrate into so many part of our lives. And so with mindfulness comes from the introspection of, like, okay, well, what did it take for this to get on my plate? And knowing that, people are hard workers. And I think especially with what our world has gone through in the last couple of years, we've really become more in tune to our local communities and
Yeah.
how we can make our local communities thrive. And it's the truth of the matter is that, we do a lot of, like, especially when it comes to produce, produce can be shipped in from all over the country, all over the world. And there's a whole talk about, organic produce versus non-organic, and organic,
Yeah.
you got to eat organic. But the truth of the matter is that organic doesn't necessarily, just because it's not organic doesn't mean it's not, great for you. And there's a lot of local farms that do have mostly organic practices, but are not labeled organic. And when they're
Right.
local, they taste better. They have more nutrients because they haven't traveled far, and the flavors are amazing, and you get them at the peak ripeness. And when we think about those things, and the flavors and the foods are better, and we're supporting our local community, I think as a whole, it helps us want to do that more.
Yeah, absolutely. And in the city I'm in, Red Deer, we have now a year-round farmers market, which I think is incredible. Like, it's an indoor farmers market, because normally we associate farmers market with setting up stalls in a parking lot, and
Yeah.
where I live, we get like a pretty harsh winter most times, and it can stick around for anywhere from 6 to 8 months. So having that accessibility is really big. One of the things that people might I don't want to say they might complain about buying local is typically if you're going to buy things locally sourced, they may cost more. But I think they're missing the entire like the complete picture there when they're thinking that way. What would you say to someone who says, "Yeah, I'd like to buy local, but I can't afford it"?
I don't know. I mean, I don't think that's always true, actually. I mean, things that come from far away, you're paying for them to be shipped, to be packaged. I think it just depends on where you're getting it. And the other thing is, I mean, okay, let's say that's a little more to buy local. Number one, if you buy seasonal, which a lot of the times local is more seasonal, it actually is cheaper because it's cheaper to grow things in the season that doesn't need like greenhouses and all those types of things. But also, when you're buying, let's say, something that's local and the flavor is enhanced, you're not going to need as much to feel satisfied, because you get this flavor, and your flavor, the flavor bomb's like going off, and you're feeling that satisfaction because you're getting that flavor. Whereas if you're eating something that isn't as flavorful, you almost don't feel as satisfied with it. And so you tend to maybe eat more of it to get that satisfaction that you're looking for. Um,
Yeah.
so you can look at it in those terms. And also, it's just perhaps looking at the different places where you're buying things. I mean, just like, different stores are individually owned. Different people, I guess, are going to sell things for another, different amounts of money. But another thing you can look at is local CSA boxes. I know
Yeah.
that we have a local CSA box that is just beyond incredible. You get this really big box full of things for $25, and I cannot believe. And then the jumbo box is $35, and I can't even handle the jumbo box. It's
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
but it's $25, like for a giant box of fruits, local fruits and veggies, is incredible.
Absolutely.
And yeah, and stepping outside your box per se and eating what's in the box, because I know a lot of people are like, well, I don't know what I'm getting. Well, maybe you should start trying new
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. Um, so then, if I could ask another slightly shift in question in terms of plant-based things, what are your thoughts on movements like Beyond Meat or Impossible Burger and these sorts of plant-based products that are being created? And do you see them as being healthy or potentially problematic?
I don't see them as being problematic, because I believe anything in moderation is fine. I mean, as long as you don't have a medical condition that you can't have it, like an allergy. Um, like whatever fast food, and I don't like to label things as bad or good, because I don't believe in that.
Yep.
I just, we, as doctors, they say you want to avoid saturated fats and trans fats for most of your diet, but a little bit isn't, unless you have, like my husband, who can't handle a lot of that. A little bit isn't really going to alter your overall health, because it's not about the individual meals. It's not about the individual foods. It's about your what you're consuming as a whole. So like within a week, it's not even about an individual day. Within a week, most of your week, you want to have nourishing foods because that's what your body needs. But if you have a meal or two that you're going through the drive-through, like, it's not the end of the world. And I think that people tend to, restrict themselves so much that it brings so much stress onto you.
Yeah.
And we all know that stress is actually almost worse for you than whatever it is that you can put in your body. So I 100%, I think those products are great, especially for people like my husband, who had to change his diet for his health, who does want to enjoy a burger from time to time.
Right. Yeah.
I, I don't think anyone has marketed them as health food. I think that that was a label or an assumption that a lot of people associated with plant-based, because plant-based, whole food plant-based is a diet that is plant-based, that's based on whole foods. But plant-based and vegan and these other labels really just mean you're avoiding animal products. It doesn't mean that it's necessarily all of it is healthy. And
Right. Yeah.
that's the thing, is I think that I think they're great alternatives for people and the world to help with, animal welfare, our environment, and things like that.
Yeah. So now, you started Veggies Don't Bite, and this is kind of, I guess, this is kind of a community and a blog and quite a few different things. How did that get started?
Well, it really just came out of this change with my husband's diet. I mean, I had to overhaul so much of our diet, and we are eaters. We don't while a salad every once in a while is fine, or as an appetizer, salads aren't necessarily something we love. Like, we will do like a big salad for dinner sometimes, like even with our kids that actually like it, but we put tons of stuff in it. It's more like a bowl versus a salad.
Sure. Yeah.
So I had to overhaul some of our favorite things, some of my husband's favorite things that he grew up loving. Like, on my website, I have a stuffed cabbage recipe that is based on his mom's recipe that was passed down from generation to generation. Even when I recreated it, it was literally a photo of a recipe card with like things, and there was no amounts, there was no nothing. And so I had to like I had to keep having my husband taste it. And this is a stuffed cabbage recipe that is made with ground meat and rice, and it reminds him of childhood. And so I recreated it out of plants for him. And so like I did that with a lot of foods, and people started asking me for my recipes, and someone mentioned like, oh, you should start a blog. And I'm like, I hate to write. I'm not starting a blog. That's dumb.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then I decided that people were asking me these things, and it just, I don't know, it became a business because I wanted to share with the world that, number one, it's not an all or nothing thing. Adding more plants into your diet can help save your life potentially. And it doesn't mean that you're eating rabbit food. Like, you're not eating necessarily just salads and veggies and whatever. You can actually eat food that you really wouldn't even necessarily know they're made from plants. I mean, I made a shepherd's pie. I have a shepherd's pie recipe, and I created the shepherd's pie. I have an English neighbor who lives across the street, and I brought her samples. And until she said, this is amazing, and she's from England, so she eats real shepherd's pie. Until she said, this is amazing, I did not stop. And I think I made it like 15 times. So you can eat incredible things. And while my website is focused on whole foods, I don't use a lot of, like, I do use tofu from time to time, which I think is fine. I'm not anti-soy. But I don't have a lot of stuff that mostly everything is made from whole foods. So it is a whole foods plant-based website, but that again is, I talk a lot about balance, and I talk a lot about food, your relationship with food, and the mental health part of it. And it's really important to force yourself to let go 1 or 2 times a week, because we all need to learn to let go a little bit.
Yeah. So maybe we could dive into that just a little bit, because I have a couple other questions I want to ask, but this is a really good point here. When you say we need to let go, what comes to mind in terms of what would that look like? Maybe in your household, letting go, and why do you see it as a necessity?
I see it a necessity because I truly believe that mental health and physical health are very connected. I think that people that live a quote unquote really healthy life and restrict themselves and do not allow themselves to eat certain things, I think mental health wise, for most of us, not everybody, but for most of us, it takes a toll. I mean, the stress about always having to worry about every single little thing that goes into your body is a lot. I mean, and I know this, I'm gluten-free, and it's very stressful because I have to be gluten-free.
Right. Yeah. It's not by choice.
No. And so it's stressful to always have to think about, does that have gluten? Does that have gluten? Because when I do eat gluten, I feel absolutely terrible, and it's not worth it. And so I've had situations where I accidentally ate it. And so those just help me be even more hyper aware. So it does take a toll on you stress wise. And I think learning to let go, unless again, you have a medical reason not to, is really important for your mental health. So sometimes we fuel our bodies and sometimes we fuel our mind. And if you're having a rough day and all you are craving is a giant bowl of ice cream and that's what you want to eat for dinner, by all means, I think you should be able to do that. When we've had a busy day and the idea of cooking something, even something that I can make in under 10 minutes, makes me want to scream, like going through the drive-thru or picking up a pizza or whatever it is for my mental health, like
Yeah.
maybe you're not getting a ton of nourishment from that, but you're giving yourself the permission and you're giving your mind the space to decompress a little bit. And that's just as important as nourishing your body.
Yeah. And so you have quite a vibrant and thriving community. And I think you have, especially on Pinterest, I had a bit of a look there. Social media presents a certain picture.
Yeah.
And of course, we want things to look good for social media. We are creating, in one sense, a type of ideal to inspire people. Would you say that your day-to-day life looks different than maybe what people might see on social media?
Well, if you follow me, if you're a follower on Instagram, you see a lot of the behind the scenes. So I think
cool.
that I do a pretty decent job of showing the good, bad, and the ugly behind the scenes in my stories. Of course, my feed is very, pretty picture because you want that pretty look of things. But again, the behind the scenes, the real part is definitely in my stories. I don't try and hide that. And I actually did just publish a reel I did a job with this plant-based nugget company called Nowadays. And when I first got the job, I was like, they wanted a reel to, share about their nuggets. And I was trying to come up with a way to share that's authentic and real because that's just me. And it fell into my lap because I had made pasta for my kids, this pasta bake recipe. It's like a creamy mac and cheese pasta bake for my kids. And my third one, who is very much the center of my craziness and the center of the craziness online. He literally cried and pushed it away. And I'm like, what is wrong with you? This is something else. Like,
yeah.
And so the reel kind of came in of itself. And the reel is a reenactment of my son pushing away this mac and cheese, which of course it's a reenactment, but it did happen. And
yeah, that's awesome.
And then introducing him these nuggets that he absolutely devours, which is like was the real part of it. So I do get some real stuff into like the reels and stuff, and a little bit of the real crazy. But yeah, I mean, I try and be as authentic as possible. I really pride myself in being authentic. And there are, of course, I have my personal life, and there are times where I may not be online because I'm just not, feeling it. Like I'm having, maybe some personal things happening, and I don't feel like I have to share everything with the world of what happens with my everyday life. But I definitely like to share, the highlights of it, and even the negatives sometimes when it comes to especially feeding your family.
Yeah, because think about the mental health piece a little bit again. I think social media has been like wonderful for being able to bring people together. I mean, like we've connected, we've never met in person, which is super cool. But the other side of it is sometimes it can distort people's expectations because of the way that, like, say, social media algorithms work. There's this pressure that the things that get the most, eyeballs on it are the things that are going to get pushed to the top, and it's not necessarily the healthiest things that are going to make it there. Right. Do you feel like that's a little bit of an uphill battle?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think that that's part of why I am online, and I'm trying to break through these norms that it has to be a pretty picture all the time. And that's why I think that, your diet and your eating and your lifestyle is a continuum. And sometimes you're on one end of it and sometimes you're on the other, and flowing through it is fine. It's real. And that's kind of, life. I mean, you can have all the best intentions for the week, but then your week might start with, I don't know, your kid coming down with the flu and a glass jar breaking all over the kitchen ground, and then what you had planned to do doesn't happen, and so that sets off a domino effect of everything you had planned to feed your family that week. And giving yourself permission and the grace to say, you know what, screw it, we're ordering pizza, I don't care. I think that's really important. And I think that it's hard. it could, like you say, it could be that it comes with age, because I think a lot of the younger generation, still struggles with this whole pretty picture online. And and that's why I try and especially to tell young moms, my audience of young moms is so important to me, because when my kids were little, like, the pressure on yourself to do everything perfectly is so high. Um,
Yeah. So yeah, and you're mom to three boys. Do you mind me asking what ages they are now?
my oldest is 10. He'll be 11 on Halloween. My second is 9, will be 10 at the beginning of February. And then my third is 6 and will be 7 in March.
Okay, so three boys. I imagine there's probably a little bit of chaos that takes place because I'm just picturing them, energetic, maybe sometimes scrapping, lots of running, wrestling, playing, that kind of thing.
Kind of, I actually, it's funny, people say that to me all the time. I have a lot of energy myself. My boys are actually, of course, they have energy, but they're actually pretty chill for boys. They're not the aggressive wrestly type. I mean, yeah, they'll kind of sometimes wrestle a little bit. But they're more the energy of like, they love to they just love life type of energy. They're not,
Okay.
they're very, very good boys. They're all very, very sensitive boys.
Yeah, yeah.
So I have the touch of sensitive in there. They're all athletic, so we play a lot of sports, but I'm totally into that. I love the whole sports all the time thing. I was very sporty growing up. But I think when you have 3 kids in general, it's just chaos because you have 3 kids, you're outnumbered.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just chaos. I think if you have any kids in general, it's chaos. But once you get past that 2 mark, the chaos kind of jumps a little bit.
Right. Yeah. So how do you stay organized? Because you're running a business. The challenge of running an online business is sometimes maybe there's a sense of pressure to be like omnipresent, and like I know that I don't create content all the time because I don't always feel like I'm in the right space for it. But
Yeah.
how do you sort of manage that? Like you're running a household with 3 boys. You're trying to run a business. How do you keep it all together?
Well, imagine when we were shut down during COVID, how fun that was. Um,
Yeah.
Spoiler, it wasn't.
Yeah.
Um, the number one thing I will say, and I think it's so important for people to say, is I have help, because we are not machines. And I think as women, especially as moms, we are expected to, like, when we say we have help, it's actually makes it seem like you're weak and you can't do it. When in fact,
Yeah.
the truth of the matter is, like, none of us are machines, like women, men, whatever it is, like knowing how and when to get help actually makes you stronger and makes
Yeah.
you a smarter person. And so that's especially for me. Number one, I have a very involved husband, which he is awesome. Like, we work together very well. But of course, so many things do land on the mom. It just is what it is most of the time. I would say that I'm old school. I have my online digital calendar, but I also have a paper planner. So every Sunday, I
Totally.
kind of like plan out my week in my paper planner. I also have, again, a lot of help with carpools, with sports. We carpool with friends. I have an amazing VA who helps me run my business, and I could not do anything without her. So she's like my right-hand woman, I guess I can say. And I hired her at the beginning of COVID because I'm actually a teacher by trade. And so when the kids were learning from home, I had to run a business and had them going to school, and a lot of people were hiring teachers, and I'm like, well, I am a teacher. I have a master's degree in education. I'm not
Yeah,
hiring a
yeah.
teacher to teach my kids.
Yeah.
So I ended up hiring a second VA at the time because I had one already. But now this woman has become, she's taken over. I only have one now. She's taken over all the responsibilities. And she basically helps me. She does the things that I am not good at. Like I
Yeah.
said, writing is not my forte. I basically do my photography, my recipe development. I set up my posts. I have an SEO analyst who helps do my content calendar. So she tells me what to do. I do it. I set it up, and then my VA comes in and finishes it all for me. And she helps with social media. So we're kind of a well-oiled machine now. We've gotten to know each other since she started back in. It's been over a year now.
Yeah.
But I have help. That's how I do it all.
Yeah, and I think that you just highlighted something really, really important there is that there's no not only is there no shame in asking for help, it's one of the best things we can possibly do.
Yeah.
It's actually a great way to forge like human connection as well.
Yes.
When you ask for help from somebody and give them an opportunity to kind of step up, it does something for us. Like, I love when someone asks me for help and I can actually step up and do something. Like,
Right.
it feels really good. And so, where this idea of we have to be this, I don't know, this island or this really, I'm this all powerful, I can do everything, I can do anything, and so on. It's this myth that it's a mythical creature that doesn't exist.
Right. No, it's
And
true. It's true, 100%. And I think there's so much pressure on us to feel like we can do it all, or else we're weak, and it's not true.
yeah. So then, how did you kind of shift? Like you talked about like making this transition or making, what did it look like to actually transition from, I guess, how you're eating, and maybe you're eating sort of in a healthy way before, but how do you go about making a transition? So maybe people are listening to this and going like, okay, how do I transition to eating healthier, especially if I'm trying to, run a household, run a business, or have a career, that kind of stuff. How do you make that shift?
Number one is slowly. Like it really truly isn't something I mean, some people do it cold turkey, and I wouldn't suggest it. I just think that especially if you're busy and real life happens, maybe just start with one meal, like start with one meal that you are meat heavy on. And maybe it's just once a week. Maybe it's one meal once a week that you add. And the other thing is there's, like you said, there's so many plant-based alternatives now. And even if it's like, let's say like chicken enchiladas is your favorite thing ever, and you have this recipe, you can do it with your eyes closed. Perhaps you start with just buying a plant-based chicken alternative. Maybe that's
Right. Yeah.
something that you do, and that's what you use instead of the regular chicken. And then once like you kind of have grasped that concept and you're okay with that, then maybe you transition into using real whole foods instead of that plant-based chicken alternative. Like jackfruit is an excellent jackfruit enchiladas or something, or making it more veggie and bean based. Like you start, step by step, and everyone's different. Everyone's different in what they can handle. So I don't think that there's like one answer to this. I think it's just you start slowly, you build on what you're comfortable with as an individual. And then lastly, like we said before, is you get help.
Yeah.
I work with clients to do things like this, and there's no shame to get help to do this. And you wouldn't try and fix the pipes yourself. You'd call a plumber.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this is the same way I talk about mental health. Like if you're struggling with something, you go see a therapist, because that's what they're there for.
Yeah.
And so when you want to change your diet and add more plant-based meals, you can hire a dietitian if you're worried about the nutrients part of it, or if you just want ideas on how to get it into your meal times and into your planning, you hire someone like me that's a health coach or whatever.
Yeah, because and people might like look at your feed and go, "Oh my gosh, I could never do that," or I don't know how to get there. But I think you've highlighted something also that's really important, and that is that you didn't get there overnight either. It's been a
No.
step by step, bit by bit process. One of the downsides of social media is we see a lot of the before and after. We don't see a lot of the between, and that's what I hope to highlight in some of these conversations here. Is I'm calling it between the before and after, like what it takes to actually get there. I think as a coach, and you'd probably agree with this, I feel like half of my job is like expectation manager, because
Yes.
it's like unmet expectations are what lead people to getting discouraged, or unrealistic expectations lead people to getting discouraged and wanting to quit and walking away from trying to live a healthy lifestyle. You've touched on stress and mental health. What are some things you do to not just like, let's say, have okay mental health, but actually proactively maintain or improve your mental health?
Well, you touched a little bit upon it, and that's one thing when I work with clients, the first thing I say is lower your expectations.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to my people I work with that want to like get their kids to eat more veggies and stuff. My number one rule is lower your expectations, because 100% your expectations are way too high. Because like you said, we see the online, and then when your expectations are high, so is your stress, because you're not meeting there. The other thing I talk about a lot is I have a free guide on small habits, and I try and we can have goals. Goals are fine, but goals should kind of like, to me, be out like in the horizon. And it's these day-to-day habits that we're looking to change, because a habit is something you don't think about. A habit is something you just do every day that doesn't take a lot of brain power. And so when we have these habits that we're working on, and we start encouraging healthier habits, that kind of avoids that stress, because you don't start
Yeah.
you're not starting with like, okay, I'm going to be plant-based. Okay, well, what does that mean to you?
Yeah.
Like, that is something that you can think about, but what are these little things that's going to take you to get there? It's not, you can't just think about it and be it. So for me, I work a lot on lowering my expectations. That really helps my mental health. Like, if I'm looking at my day and I had planned to get like 6 different things done, for my business that day before the kids came home, and my morning, I usually like to work out. I usually get up early and work out. But if I had, the night before, if I didn't really have great sleep, sometimes I'll say, forget it, I'm going to sleep in today and just work out later. Because sleep is so important to me. And especially if it's been like the second, third day in a row, I haven't slept very well, I'm like, no, my body needs me to sleep. So my days just started later. So I'm not going to get those 6 things done. So I have to tell myself, you know what? It's okay if I don't get those done. These are the 2 most important things I need to finish today. The rest can wait. And
Yeah.
it is what it is. And so that's a number one thing. Definitely exercise helps with my stress level.
Yeah.
Movement, whether it's like hardcore, running my Peloton, or if it's like a yoga class, like that's maybe not a power yoga, maybe it's more of a yoga flow, depending on what my body needs that day. That definitely helps. And I have kind of lost it for a little while, but I'm starting to get back into it. But mindfulness and meditation, like even if it's
Yeah.
5 minutes of quiet a day,
Yeah.
it really does wonders for your mental health.
Absolutely. And I do the same thing. Like and I'll do it with clients as well, and say, maybe could you meditate 3 minutes a day? If not 3, could you do it 2? Because the way that I view habits, because you're totally speaking my language here, is I have my clients set what we call CMGs, or can't miss goals. So it's like, take that thing that you want to incorporate into your life and shrink it down to the point where it's impossible to miss it, like even on a difficult day.
Yeah.
Because you can always build on that. But what really dictates the success of habits is the repeatability of it. If you set
Yes.
your goal to be, I'm going to, do 60 minutes of exercise 5 days a week, and you've led a sedentary lifestyle, that's going to be incredibly difficult to try to
Right.
incorporate that into your life. But
Right.
but on the other hand, if I say, okay, well, why don't you set your goal to be 5 minutes of deliberate activity every day? You can always do more than that. But on the days where you feel like you can't do anything, you can probably do 5.
Yeah. And that's what it is, because it's, and it slowly becomes a habit, like it becomes something that your body actually wants and needs,
Yeah.
because it's just like brushing your teeth. Like, if you miss brushing your teeth at night or in the morning, you're like, oh God, how did I miss that? Like, you don't feel right. So that's what
Yeah.
we really want with habits, healthy lifestyle habits, especially, is you want them to be something that you crave and need and want to do, even if it's like crazy day, like you said.
Yeah, and I do a little bit of what I call habit stacking, and that's kind of a simple trick where, if I have a well-established habit, I just kind of attach another one onto it.
Yes.
And that's, I mean, James Clear talks about this in his book Atomic Habits. He wrote a really good book on it, on how to build habits, and how like a small habit, over the course of a year can lead to dramatic shift. So for me, like, I kind of have my, I hydrate first thing in the morning. I brush my teeth. I sort of meander downstairs where I've got this recumbent stationary bike. I hop on that and ride it just for 10 minutes, just to get the blood flowing, because I also have a hip issue. And so it's about sort of warming up that joint, getting it lubricated, getting it moving a little bit more freely. And then I jump in and have a cold shower, which my wife thinks I'm nuts. But like, so I just started stacking all these little things, and, I use a basic habit tracker called Loop. And as one habit gets established, then I'll add another one to it. If I find that it's getting too much and I'm skipping habits all the time, I'll just take one out until, and I work with my clients to reverse engineer their own healthy lifestyle. And I think that's a really powerful approach. So now, you've shared a lot of really helpful and valuable information here, and I super appreciate that. If people want to find you, where do they go online to locate you?
Well, I mean, I personally am most active on Instagram. It's one platform that I am the one on stories. I have my, virtual assistant helps with my feed, but I really love connecting with people through direct messages on Instagram. But that is where I'm most active. I'm also active on my email. So joining my email list, there's a lot of ways to join it through my website, veggiesdon'tbite.com. And on Instagram, I'm also Veggies Don't Bite. I'm Veggies Don't Bite everywhere on every
Yeah.
social media platform.
I love that
Um,
handle, by the way.
Thank you. So yeah, my email is always a great way to get in touch with me as well, whether you're on my email list and get my weekly emails, or if you email me, Sophia at veggiesdon'tbite.com. I'm really good at getting back to my emails, within a couple days at the most. And then other than that, I mean, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Pinterest, I'm on those places. I'm just not as active there. But I would say email and Instagram or my website. Those are like the best places to get a hold of me.
That's awesome. Well, thanks very much again for joining me. And this has been another episode of
Absolutely.
Wellness Unplugged. And for those of you who are watching, mash the heart button, mash the like button. For those of you who are listening after the fact, give us a like, subscribe, do all the clicky things that mean more people get to hear awesome conversations like this. So thank you very much and have a great day.
Thank you.